Teleprompter, create videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.
Hello. Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are so excited to have you all here for the How to Write Videos, that scripts for videos that get attention, that will create impact and persuade whatever audience it is that you're looking to reach. Would love to see in the chat where you all are joining us from. Go ahead and pop in the chat. Let us know where you are. I'm joining from Raleigh, North Carolina, which is on the East Coast of the United States. So go ahead and pop in the chat where you're coming in from. There we go. Double Deutsch. Scott joining us, I assume, from Germany, maybe. We also have Jerry coming in from Seattle, Washington. So we are coast to coast. Oh, Vermont. Okay, Scott. Double Deutsch. Gotcha. Wilmington. Hey, David. Lisa coming in from Los Angeles. And we're so excited to get this going because last week we attempted to do this and we had a little bit of a technical snafu, but we are all set this time around. And let me tell you about what you're going to learn in today's workshop, because you're going to be floored at how quickly you can start to write impactful copy that's going to help you get your message out there better. We're going to look at strategies to capture and retain your audience's their attention right from the start. The next thing we're going to talk about are the elements that contribute to impactful copy. We're also going to work on techniques to persuade and inspire action, as well as innovative approaches to inspire your copy. Because as you know, if you have Big View, you have an AI helper who can help you with your scripts. I've used it, I continue to use it, and I'm really enjoying using my input with that of the AI technology that's already built in to Big View's platform. And would love for you to stick around till the very end, because we have 3 giveaways that we're going to be giving you. All right. Also, let's check in again, see where folks are coming in from. We have people coming in from Orlando, Florida, from Mandeville, Louisiana, Dallas, Texas. Hey, Big D, West Virginia, Orlando, Florida. Oh, some beautiful people. Hello, Mimosas, Mantras, and Money. Portland, Oregon, Everett, Washington. Aloha from Hawaii. It's great to see you all here. Okay, let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. Let me tell you about David Deutsch. He is a renowned copywriter who has worked on Madison Avenue. That is the place. The world's best advertising agencies are there in New York City on Madison Avenue and in Chicago, right? And so he has been working in that with advertising and direct response for many, many years. He trains and coaches creative copywriters and teams of writers. So can you imagine how much those companies are paying? And we're getting him here today with us. Clients of David's include Fortune 100 companies such as Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble owns so many different brands. So without any further ado, please welcome David Deutsch. Hey, David.
Hey, Sharon. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody here.
It is so good to see you here. And we want to invite all of our audience to go ahead and pop your questions into the chat. I'm going to be monitoring that as we're talking with David today. So go ahead and add in your questions. But let's go ahead and get a little bit of a background, David, on how you got into this field in the first place.
Well, as you said, I started out on Madison Avenue. It wasn't really my intention to get into advertising. I was kind of working in an administrative capacity there, rather young at the time. And eventually I saw what was going on and I thought, well, I can do this. I can write words. I can put words together. And so, Ogilvy, where I was a very nurturing environment. It was almost like a teaching hospital in a way.
That's
And
great.
yeah, so I started writing, and then I started working there full time as a copywriter. Then I began working at other ad agencies in different places around the country, and eventually got more into what's called direct response, which, unlike advertising on television and radio, where it's kind of brand advertising, I kind of came to specialize in advertising that gets a response, right? Where
Can
you're
you give
actually
us an
selling.
example? What would be an example that we would recognize, David?
Well, certainly, well, infomercials are kind of a little bit
Oh,
between,
okay.
it's not like, "Oh, you should drink Miller beer, ask for it at the store," it's like, "No, call this number, send us money." Um,
Oh, like those 30-minute shows where the host is talking about
right,
the attributes of whatever the product or service is, and you're pushing them to dial a number or log on?
exactly, and then, of course, a lot of the stuff you see on the internet, right, where you click on something and it takes you to what we call a video sales letter, where it sells you on whether it's a supplement or a subscription to a financial publication or a doodad, um, or it takes you to a YouTube video where you're selling on a YouTube video. Whatever it is, it's selling something directly, or it's asking you to give your name so that it can follow up selling you by email.
Okay, so let's get to the basics of why video scripts are so important and they play a strong role in effective communication, because some people might just want to wing it. But that is not the way you should go, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, well, certainly today, video is increasingly important, as I'm sure you know, right? More and more people just want to watch a video. They don't want to read a long sales letter, but they will watch a video. They will watch even a long video. Video also enables you to incorporate other means of communication, right? You have visual elements. You can actually, have a real person that's talking on there. You can show things. You can take people around the world by video. So it's a very, very powerful medium for selling, for communicating. And in a way, the script is the most important part of that.
Right. And so with that, and this actually feeds in nicely. We have someone already with a question about a, a direct response strategy. Can you take that over to, let's say, Reels or Shorts or TikTok? I know that direct response tends to be a little bit longer, but have you seen over time that they've become a little bit more truncated or a little bit shorter?
Yeah, well, when you're talking about Reels or TikTok, you're talking more about maybe like a two-step strategy. In other words, you could
Okay.
have an infomercial or you could have a long video on YouTube that sells a product. Please send us money. We'll send you this widget. When you're doing something on TikTok, you want to get them maybe to that longer video. You want to get them to
Oh,
the sales page. You want to get them to give you their email so that you can follow up and market to them by email, or in some cases, even to give you their telephone number, and you can market to them by text messages. A lot of people do that. So don't look at TikTok or Reels as a selling mechanism so much as a lead generation
okay.
mechanism.
So I guess it depends what you're going for, what your goals are. I know that I ended up going down the rabbit hole on TikTok last night, and there were a lot of people opening up their package and doing like a product, an unboxing of a
Hmm.
product, and then other people like doing a pretty short but impactful video of how XYZ product delivered on its promise. And I think the video is no more than like 2 or 3 minutes. And you could
Hmm.
actually buy it from the TikTok channel, from the person. So I think that there's a lot of fluidity in how this direct response is potentially evolving
Yeah,
with all these platforms.
yeah. A lot of that depends on the product, right? There are
Mhm.
certain things that you can sell in a 2-minute TikTok video, or longer, right? Things that people know they want. You've got a good deal. It's demonstratable. There are other things like, let's say you're selling a consulting service or something like that, that it's not something that someone's just going to push a button and sign up for.
Mm. Right. So, okay. Yeah. So you're almost like you're creating a sales funnel, right? So you get them step
Exactly.
one, then step two. Uh, uh, Mahmood is asking about using videos for real estate. Well, obviously, real estate is such a visual thing, right? So it lends
Hmm.
itself beautifully for real estate. But I guess that could also be uh, depending on, are you selling one house or are you trying to introduce your viewers or followers to a whole new neighborhood? How would you approach that, David?
Yeah, well, as you say, it depends a lot on what type of real estate we're talking about. But if you're talking about just selling houses or apartments or something like that, there's so many things that you can do. I get a lot of that just because I'm from New York, originally from New York City, and they know TikTok knows I love stuff about New York. So I'll a lot of times get, someone like, hey, here we are at the world's most expensive New York apartment. It'll be like this 59-story penthouse and I'll just watch the whole thing, right? So if you just make it interesting, you can build up a following. Look at what Ryan Serhant has done with social
Who's that?
media. Ryan
Ryan who?
Serhant, Serhant, Sersant. He was
Okay.
a guy that was on $1 Million Listings, New York, on Broad. See, I think everyone watches that, but in reality, they don't. I just watch it because I used to be from New York, right? And I like what we call New York real estate porn, right? It's like
Right,
looking at
right.
beautiful New York apartments. Um, and he just does all these interesting videos about New York and about real estate, about the apartment he rents, and he's got like millions of followers. So you can
Wow.
imagine if he's got an apartment that he's going to sell, he just has to put it on social media and millions of people see it.
Okay, so let's get back to some of the foundational stuff. All right, so whatever your product or service, or maybe if you're a consultant, you've got a service, or if you're selling a product or a widget or whatever, you've got that
Mhm.
too. What elements are crucial for grabbing and holding your viewers' attention
Okay,
when you're
good.
writing that script?
There's a couple of things, right? Curiosity is very powerful, right? We
Hmm.
want to know the answer to things we don't know. If we're wrong about something, if we're, that's why you see so many videos. 3 foods you should never eat, 3 healthy foods
Ah,
you should never eat, right? Oh, now I'm curious. I'm doing something wrong. I better find out about this. Uh,
oh,
the biggest this, the smallest that, the one thing you should never do, the one thing you should always do. Very powerful force. You see that a lot in clickbait type things. They always
yeah.
utilize that. The other thing that grabs people's attention is that it relates to what they care about. It'll help them get something they want, right? If I see something about how to be a better copywriter, if you see something about how to be a better presenter and interviewer, right? That's the sort of thing that's going to be like, whoa, this got me. Of course, now you have to hold on to me, right? You have to make me think. Now you've got something new. It's not the same old thing about how to be a better copywriter, but it's going to get my attention because that's something that I want, right?
And you're
So,
maybe solving a problem for someone. You're looking for their pain point, whatever it
right.
is, right? Trying to
And
solve it.
that's why
Oh,
it's so important to know what people's pain points really are. And a lot of times they're under the surface, as it were. It's not what you might think at first. It's not what people admit to, right? You may think my pain point is that I want to make a lot of money, but maybe my pain point or my desire, right? But maybe it's that I need to prove myself. Maybe it's I need to be a success, right? Maybe it's that I need to prove to my fourth grade teacher or my spouse or whoever it is that I'm not really a failure. I can do it. So maybe that's what you need to talk about. And then if you just talk to people about, oh, you'll be able to make so much money, you'll be able to make a lot of money, you might not get them, you might not grab their attention the same way you would as imagine being able to sit at the table next Thanksgiving and talk about how successful you are for a change.
Ah, okay. And that leads nicely to what Mimosa's Mantras and Money asks, looking for how to figure out what those pain points are or how you can help someone is really about research, right? Talking to people, trying to understand. Like when you're putting
Mhm.
together a script, David, is there a research piece first before you write the first word?
Yeah, for sure. Unless I know the product and know the market, right? I want to find out everything I can. And I want to talk to people in that market. And I want to talk to, especially, I want to talk to, let's say I'm working for a client, I want to talk to the client and really dig deeply into what they know about the product. If I'm marketing something for myself, right, I want to go out there and talk to people in that market and really, I don't know, it's like I want to live with them for a day, right? I want to follow them along because they're not going to tell me I just want to prove myself, right? They're not going to tell me, they're going to tell me they want to be healthy. They're not going to tell me I'm scared of being in an old age home when I die, when I get older. They're not going to tell me I'm scared of losing my independence, right? I have to get to know them, right? And be able to figure that out for myself. And I
Okay.
have
Can
to,
you go ahead? Go ahead.
and maybe I have to talk to people who talk to them or deal with them on a daily basis, right? Maybe I have to go find a doctor that deals with people every day and say, what are people really afraid of, right? When it comes to their health. And he might be able to tell me, they're scared of losing their independence, right? People don't mind that they're going to die one day. They know they can't live forever, but they do want to keep being independent for as long as. Well, that's a really important thing to know if you're selling any kind of health product to people.
Right, right. Yeah, how to stay healthy well into your, well into your 80s or 90s or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
One person here, and I think this brings up a good point. Stephanie writes, "I'm worried that I might be getting too preachy on talking about for her anyway. It's talking about toxic chemicals in your homes." So it's almost like there's the scare tactic thing, like
Mhm.
the 3 chemicals you should never have in your home, and then
Right, right.
you click to it, right? Or what I was just using what you had said. Um, but then once you've got someone watching, um, without maybe being too preachy, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, you don't want to preach, obviously, and you don't want to lecture. A lot of times I think people start talking about things they're passionate about, and they go into lecture mode, right? Well,
Mm,
dioxazine is a very dangerous chemical and it was first created back when the earth was null and void and gases began to off gas from the earth. And dioxazine was like, you don't want to go back that far. You don't want to lecture people about it. You want to make it interesting. You want to make it impactful, right? This is what dioxazine can do when it gets into your lungs, right? This is how it affects you, right? It could be affecting you and you don't even know it. And if you've been around, if you're over 50, like you've been exposed to it since you were a kid and it's building up in your body and it's been building
mm.
up in your body. So you really need this detoxifying thing that we've got, whatever it is, right?
Okay,
You
so
want to,
you've piqued their curiosity. Now you're getting in there and you're giving them a little bit of background about it,
mhm.
and then what's the next step?
um, I think too, just to go back a little bit, I think also you want to tell stories. You don't want to
Ah, that was
lecture.
yes.
Yeah, you don't want to lecture. You don't want to preach. You want to tell stories. Dioxin was first discovered because, this scientist, his kid kept getting sick all the time. And he couldn't figure out why. They were feeding him healthy things, and doctors kept saying there was nothing wrong. And they had someone come to the house and do a chemical analysis, and they found that the house had been painted with paint that had dioxin in it. And that was when he discovered how bad dioxazine was, and he did some research. And see, now it's like an interesting story. It's not
Mm,
preaching because people like stories.
gotcha. That is
Okay.
right. So that leads us nicely into taking that, so that's a part of what, when you're coming up with your content idea, what story can you attach to it, like you
Right.
said. And that's, I like that, the scientist. I once had a client whose wife's, he was a pharmacist by trade, worked in a pharmacy, but his wife at home uh, could not stop her hands from cracking. She washed her hands a lot. She was a school teacher, or no, but she was in
Mm.
healthcare. So she was washing her hands a ton, and it would dry them out. And she'd put all the different lotions and potions. Nothing helped. And her hands would crack so much that in the wintertime, they would actually bleed. They bought every single product on the market. Nothing
Mm.
helped. So he decided, I'm a pharmacist. I'm going to invent something. And so their origin story of how they came up with their product is how they sell, because the story sells itself, right?
It really, I want to go out and buy this now,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause, I mean, not because I have cracking, but every once in a while there's a little cracking or something, right? Like, sounds like that would be handy to have. You could feel how powerful that story is, right? That's what copy needs to be and scripts need to be, is have that exactly what you just said, right? That kind of story, that kind of power.
So then how, if you come up with a really cool story that can be attached to whatever your product or service is, what strategies do you use to persuade your viewers to then take an action with it?
I think you want to very clearly relate it to what they want, right? Do they want not cracking? Do they want to look good because their hands look good? Like, what are all those things that people would want this product for, right? And you really have to stop and think about it, right? Like, it's, oh, okay, your hands cracking. Well, if your hands crack, it doesn't look good. So there's that. If your hands crack, you get the bleeding that you talked about. So that's not good. You get pain. So that's really not good. You probably, if I really started researching it, I would probably find that you also can get infection, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
how probably things wind up having to get amputated if you have diabetes. So if it was defensible, I might even say, look, this is serious. You could actually lose a limb from cracking. It's not just unsightly. It's not just painful. It's not just annoying that it bleeds. It's a real, problem that in the extreme could lead to, actually losing a limb.
David, real quick, and
Mhm.
this is, I think there's a fine line. Bonnie just brought this up, and I think it is true that scare tactics may grab a viewer in and get their attention.
Mhm.
We also want to be careful that we're not known as that, where it's almost like bait and switch or clickbait, like the sky is falling. Like, you want to be able to provide a solution without scaring people, but you do want to get their curiosity. So I think, how do you manage that
Yeah.
line right there?
Well, you might want to scare them a little bit, but it's a really good point that you don't want it to be scare tactics for a lot of reasons, right? You don't want to be known as that. And also, people feel when you're trying to manipulate them, right?
Mhm.
There's a bit of a reaction there. There's a bit of a resistance that starts to come in. So you want to be able to turn up or down, like you want to be able to have a knob that you can control, right? How do you turn down the volume on that? Well, you can say, look, I'm not saying this is going to happen to you, but but it does occasionally happen that a limb has to be amputated, because of, cracking, getting an infection, not being able to get rid of that infection or whatever, especially for people with diabetes. Um, but and so you kind of throttle back a little bit. You kind of hedge a little bit. You kind of acknowledge that, this is not something that's probably going to happen to you, but kind of why take a chance?
Right. And maybe when you're writing these scripts, could you have someone as a sounding board? Like, hey, let's go through these scripts together, right? And let's and get feedback, right? Before you're putting it out there into the world, right? Get some feedback to make sure that it doesn't feel manipulative or too much like you're shouting that the sky is falling, but maybe that, hey, here's a problem and here's the solution, right? So maybe, and then I think too, it's important to notate too, David, that the way you're delivering it, how you're saying it, the tone in which you're saying it on the video makes a huge impact on how it lands for the viewer. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I think those two things are for sure connected, right? If you give it to someone to read, they can tell you that the tone is not what it should be. They were turned off by it. They can tell you where it's not believable. Um, I think that, I mean, it's a great point to give your copy to people to read. I think that will instantly improve everyone's copy if they just give it to more people to read and get feedback, right? Let them tell you, don't just let them tell you, oh yeah, that's great. That's great copy. You're a good writer, you know, but say, okay, where did you find it unbelievable? Where do you think I went over the line? Where do you think I was trying too hard to be? Where did you feel manipulated? And I'll tell you one trick that I really like, is you don't have to wait till you write your copy to do that. Talk to people about what you want to write about even before you write it. Go try to get them interested in why this chemical are in your house, right? And see where they are interested and see where they get bored. See where they roll their eyes, like, oh yeah, chemical going to kill me in my house, right? Or, you know, and then you say something, oh wow, the chemist, that guy really, they found that the chemical was killing his kid. That's interesting. What is this chemical? Like, then you know you're kind of onto something, right?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. If the person you're talking about is asking for more questions, more
Right.
clarification, you've got a good start there.
Yep.
So, you talked about story, attaching this and having a story. What do you do? Do you have a story structure that you typically use? I mean, I feel like we all learned when we were writing our very first book reports, like introduction, body, conclusion. Is it much more complex than that, or do you keep it simple?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a structure. I mean, we can go into very complicated story structure, right? And hero's journey kind of thing, where
Ah,
you've got someone going out and looking for knowledge or looking on a quest, right? And it's the basis of Star Wars and all these things. And they go and they conquer the enemies. They have the help of an ally like
mm,
Yoda. And then they go and they have a big battle at the end. Then they come back to the known world with the knowledge, right? That's an interesting story structure. But I think basically you want your story to have an arc, right? It's kind of like a
mm,
3-act thing where there's like a beginning. This is where we set out what the problem is. This is where it gets worse, right? They, like this, the guy, his kid kept getting sick and he didn't know why, right? And so now we've got curiosity, right? We've got something at stake. It's kind of interesting. And he tried all these things, right? The arc is getting bigger, right? Tried
it's
all
going
these
up.
things.
Okay.
Nothing seemed to work. He was at his wit's end. And then finally he discovered, right, the denouement, the ending, right? Finally he discovered that it was being caused by this chemical. And so he wrote a paper about it and brought it to the public's attention. And he created this detoxifying thing, or like whatever the story is.
Sure. So you've got the main characters, the problem that your product or
Right.
service is hopefully going to solve, and then you describe what this journey is of the issues it's causing. So you've got this conflict, right? And
Mhm.
it could be, you against the unknown chemical in the house, whatever that conflict may be. And then once you discover what it is, there now can be part of the resolution seeking and how to
Right.
fix it, right? How to come up with a solution. Because people, like, I think humans need solutions at the end. Because if it's an unfinished story and you're left hanging, I mean, I guess that's what writers for a long time do at the end of
Mhm.
episodic television to get you
Right.
to tune in next week, or nowadays for streaming to just binge on to the next one, right?
Yeah, for sure. Using cliffhangers to get people to
Ah,
read the next email, watch the next video, keep watching the video, right? Hey, thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned to the end because I'm going to tell you how to get, whatever, or I'm going to tell you a secret that's going to make all your, wrinkles go away or make you rich or whatever it is, right? But yeah, I think
And
you want to make stories interesting. You want them to have conflict, right? You want
sure.
something to be at stake. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, right? It's not just boy meets girl and they live happily ever after. That's not an interesting
That's
story.
boring and predictable, right?
Right.
So maybe that's how you have to go for uh, creating that interest and differentiating yourself from other similar kinds of brands or products or services is to create a little bit of drama. Maybe it doesn't have to be, huge cliffhanger, but it could be creating a little bit of interest and intrigue there.
Yeah, I think I think of copywriting a lot as drama, right? Like John Caples did a very famous ad. John Caples had to sell a piano program where they taught you how to play piano. And he could have done how to play piano in 20 minutes, had a great piano course you really should buy, whatever it is. And the headline that he came up with really dramatized it. It's a very classic old headline, which is they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, dot, dot, dot. And it was just this perfect dramatization of like, why do you want to play piano? Like what we talked about before. Do you really just want to make notes come out in the air and play? And is that what you want? Or do you want to impress your friends by playing piano? Right. And I know I play piano, and a large part of me likes playing piano because I want to impress my friends by playing piano. And he really took that and dramatized it. And that's kind of always what you want to be doing in copy. How can I
Nice.
dramatize that? How can I dramatize that there are toxins, right? You don't want to just say, there are 12 toxins that are in your house and you should know about. Here they are. Toxin number 1, toxin number 2. No, you want to dramatize it with the story of a guy whose kid keeps getting sick.
Ah, yes, gotcha. Okay.
Oh,
Is there any other or what other iconic campaigns do you like, or a case study that you have followed or think is a really good one that you could share with our audience today that has done a good job with that? You can talk about your own. Like, what's your
okay.
favorite campaign you ever did for a direct response or one of your Procter and Gamble
Well,
projects?
one of my favorite ones was something I did for Boardroom Reports, Bottom Line Publications, which was kind of a publication that consumer secrets kind of thing.
Ooh.
And they had a thing. One of their consumer secrets was that if you have a pair of shoes that's too tight, right? The way to kind of stretch out those shoes is to take a plastic bag, fill it with water, right? And then put it inside the shoe, right? And it'll go in, it'll conform to the shape of the shoe, right? You tie it, of course, so it doesn't, get out. And then you put the shoe in the freezer. And what will happen is that the ice in the bag, which is perfectly conformed to the shape of the shoe, will expand uniformly. And in expanding, it will gently expand the shoe in all directions. And those new shoes you bought, won't be so tight. They won't hurt the way new shoes do. And so I thought about, well, how can I get people interested in this, right? Do I say, oh, the secret way to get your new tight shoes to fit you better, or the plastic bag solution to sight shoes or something, or, and finally I dramatized it. And the headline was, honey, what are my new shoes doing in the freezer? And
Oh,
it was this, husband that was like, he was kind of like looking like, he's opening the freezer and his new shoes are in there. And, it was such a nice attention getting way of drawing people into this. So you always want
huh.
to be looking for that. You always want to be looking for, what's the drama here? Because that's what people are interested in, right? You see that all the time. Why are we interested in the Kardashians? Why are we interested in Harry Potter? Why are we
Yeah.
interested in Game of Thrones? Right? It's drama.
Yeah.
Um,
Humans are
I
wired for it. Yeah.
We're wired for it, yeah. And I think I'll tell you a secret of writing, which I think this kind of ties into, which is that the best writing is writing that you're a little nervous about. You're a little nervous about, oh, do I really want people to know this about me? Right? You're a little nervous about, can I really say this? Are people going to get offended if I say this? Is this a little too much? Is this a little, whatever it is, right? If you're a little nervous about it, that's what people tend to gravitate toward, is because they want to hear stuff you're embarrassed about. They want to hear kind of real, because there's so much artificiality out there, right? There's so much just plain vanilla. And especially with AI now, AI is never going to talk about stuff it's embarrassed about. It doesn't get embarrassed, right? So that's the uniquely human advantage that we still have, is that we can talk about our failures. We can talk about stuff we're embarrassed by. We can confess and expose and be transparent. And that's what people respond to in writing. When you look at people like, I don't know, Gary V, right? Who everybody loves and loves his videos. It's because he's transparent. He's not afraid to talk about himself and be human and be transparent and expose himself.
You mentioned AI, David. Have you used AI? Have you tested it? Are you using it? Let us know.
Okay, that's the question everyone's asking.
Expose yourself, David.
Expose myself. Yes, I use it. I've experimented with it. I think that the thing about AI that people need to understand is it's a really good assistant. It's not something that's going to be writing copy for you and you cut and paste it and put it in. You want to edit that. You want to bring in the human element. Because what has value is your judgment, right? Your discernment, right? Like the person was saying, is this, how did she put it? Over the top, too preachy, right?
Yeah, right.
You're the one that's got to know it's too preachy, right? AI is not going to know that. You're the one that's got to know this is right for this point in the video right now. This is not right. This is right for me. This is not right for me. This needs some of this. What if I put this here? What if I began it this way, ended it in this way? AI is great at being able to give, so just like an assistant, right? It's like, give me 10 ideas on this. Give me some ideas from this. Write this for me, right? You might not take what the assistant comes up with and cut and paste it and put it in there. But a lot of times like, oh, I never thought of number 7.
Yes, it could prompt you to then create something on your own that you hadn't thought of yet, a different point of view potentially. All right, well, because we're talking about video, what visual or audio components do you bring in to enhance a script when you're writing when you're writing the script? Do you actually add in areas like, this is where I'm going to show this, or I'd like to have maybe a homeowner talk about this here, or what? Tell me a little bit about how you include all of that.
Yeah, I definitely think about what I'm going to include like that. I think one of the biggest secrets of writing video scripts that I learned from people that wrote video scripts for a living in, like in documentaries or screenwriters, is divide the page in half, right? Word can do this for you. And there are screenwriting things that can do this for you, right? So you've got what's spoken on this side, and then the video instructions is, well, you've seen that because you work with video scripts all the time for what you do. And that forces you to think about, okay, what am I going to have here? And then the person, maybe you've got someone else doing your videos for you or helping you, or maybe you're doing it yourself, but it's forcing you to think about that. What should go with this? And, you don't want it to always be what they say in the video world, see and say, right? It's like talking about exercise. We show a woman on an exercise bike. We talk about diet. We show a picture of food. We talk about this and we show this. You want the video to be, imaginative, in what it shows, right? You want it to be different. You want it to convey emotion. You want it to convey benefit, right? You don't want it to just convey what a thing is, but what the benefit of it is. So maybe it's a woman on a scale and she's looking at her weight and she's smiling because, she weighs less, right? You
Got
want to, and I think also another thing that's really important about video is a lot of times you don't have the video resources to have really good footage of things, right? So a lot of times people will use still shots of things. Even if you use still shots, you want to keep that moving, right? You want the camera to be maybe zooming in and zooming out. You want it to be maybe panning across like that, just kind of like who's that guy, Kevin Burns, does on his
Sure. Yeah.
documentaries,
Yeah.
where he's
Yeah.
always showing old photos of things, but he keeps it interesting because he's zooming in and out. And it's almost like you forget that he's only using, still photographs. You think, oh, it's a movie. It's not a movie. It's just, he's really just good at that.
Yeah. And that's actually an effect. If anyone has a Mac and they use the Apple products like a Mac computer, every Mac comes with
Mhm.
iMovie. And within iMovie, they have that Ken Burns uh, feature where it will almost do the editing for you with all of the movement of still imagery. David, when you're talking about, that split page with video on one side and then the
Mhm.
copy points of the script on the other. Remember, as a cub reporter, as a journalist, different maybe from newspaper or magazine writers, but as a television journalist, in my training, I would go out and shoot the video, shoot the interviews, blah, 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 get back to the television station. And then I would comb through the video and find the most impactful piece of video. And I would
Mhm.
start my stories with that because I feel like that would grab people's attention, whatever it
Mhm.
might be. And then we were always taught to write to the video so that it makes sense. Because if the viewer's looking at the moon, but I'm talking about sunrise, that's
Right.
confusing, right? You don't wanna confuse the viewer and make them have to make these leaps. Like, you're making sure, and I know see and say may be a little bit too simplistic, but making sure that if you are shooting a video of a new home that you're about to list, maybe don't always start with that same establishing shot at the front door. Maybe
Mhm.
go and start, maybe they've got a really cool theater room built into their bonus room. They've created like a home theater. Maybe you could start the video there. Maybe you could even
Mhm.
be in like the big theater seat saying, imagine yourself right here on Friday night with your family, sitting here getting ready to pop some popcorn and enjoy the latest release on the streaming service. Let me show you about this house or whatever. You can kind of just
Mhm.
what maybe thinking about things a little bit more creatively.
Well, yeah, I think that's huge. Order is so important, right? Sequence, to think about sequencing. And people tend to think about sequencing very linearly, right? With beginning, middle, end. Start here on the outside, inside, whatever. And I think in a video, even in storytelling, to begin what they call in medias res, which is Latin for in the middle of things, where you
Oh,
start in the middle of a story
oh,
rather
yes.
than, and it's a very National Enquirer technique. It's a very, like if you're telling a story about, you could tell a story about how, we went on a safari and the day dawned like any other. The sun rose in the east and, we got in the Jeep and we went out exploring the savannah or whatever. Or you could start the story, I could feel the lion's hot breath on my neck as he got ready to bite down, right? It's
Ooh,
like, whoa, it's like, what happens next, right?
yeah.
And so then you could say, okay, the day began like any other. And now I can't
Okay.
wait to get back to that. Or you could just continue from
Foreshadowing,
there.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
And that
it's
would,
like you say, it's the same thing in videos, right?
yeah.
Don't think you have to start at the beginning in a traditional way, right? Be interruptive about it because there's so much stuff coming at people these days. You've got to
Sure.
kind of drag them in by the scruff of their neck or shirt or whatever.
Exactly. Well, with that in mind, let's talk about that call to action. No matter what video script you're writing, there always needs to be some kind of call to action at the end, whatever it might be. Subscribe, click here, sign up for my newsletter, buy my product, hire us to do whatever. Like, how do you go about thinking the way you're going to end your video scripts?
Well, I think you want to have a really clear call to action, right? I think a lot of times you almost want to start with that. You almost want to, and one trick that I do sometimes is just to start by writing the call to action. And then I kind of know, okay, what am I leading up to?
Oh,
I
like
always
reverse
know where I'm
engineering it?
going. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
starting with the end in mind.
Ah,
Um, and I think you want your call to action to be clear. You want it to be easy, right? You want it to be devoid of friction. And I think you also want to be clear what happens after they do that. Because I think a lot of people are kind of nervous about, well, what if I push this button? What's going to happen? Are they going to take money out of my account if I push this button? Am I going to be committed to something? Am I going to be able to get out of this? Or if maybe you're asking for setting up a phone call, which is a difficult thing to ask for in a call to action, right? Like, assure them it's going to be a 10-minute phone call. I'm not going to try to sell you anything, whatever it is. You've just got to reassure people what happens next before they
like
take that.
like at the beginning of our hour today, David, we promised 3 giveaways that we will be
That's
announcing in
right.
just a few minutes. We want you to stay to the end because it's very valuable stuff. I heard a quote the other day that I think is very relevant to our audiences today. You're no longer trying to hold their attention. You're trying to disrupt their distraction,
Mm,
right?
that's a great that's a great
I,
way to say it.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, because you're scrolling through things. You might stop and you listen for like the first 10 seconds. Are they going to stay? Or are they going to keep scrolling? Like, how do you get them to stay? Um,
You know, I think so many people write out of habit the way they wrote book reports or college papers or whatever it is in school, right? And it was like you wrote it, the teacher had to read it. Well, guess what? The prospect doesn't have to read what you're writing. And so you can't write like that anymore, as if your teacher has to read it. They don't have to read it, right? So you've always got to be thinking, how do I get their attention? How do I keep their attention? Right? Some people think about it like, what's the purpose of the headline? To get you to read the first, or the opening, right? What's the opening? The purpose of the first thing you say is to get them to listen to the second thing you say. The purpose of the second thing you say is to get them to listen to the next thing you say, right? You just
ah,
want to keep holding them. And I think that you want to think of it as like, what would I say to someone to get their attention, right? Like, let's say, your spouse, partner, whoever you live with, right? You're in the kitchen and you say to them, do I say to them, uh, you know, uh, hey, you want to hear about a chemical in the house that's bad for you? They're like, no, I'm making dinner. I'm doing this. I'm checking my phone. Go away. Right. So what do you do? Like, what do you say? Like, oh, maybe if I said, hey, there was this scientist that his kid was really sick, and he kept he couldn't find out why his kid was sick, and he found out that it was a chemical in the house, and I'm worried that that's something that we might have in our house. Like, that sort of gets their attention, right? That
tell
might
me
make them,
more. Yeah.
gets that tell me more reaction. So that's a great way to say it, right? What do
Ah,
you say to someone to get the tell me more reaction?
tell me more. So say
Right.
more. Give
Yeah.
me more. Like, so maybe don't give the whole thing away in that first opening statement because you need
Yeah.
them to stay, right? You can't give it all away. You got to maybe drip little bits and pieces, right?
Right. Sometimes you need to do that. You need to make a little breadcrumb trail.
In talking about these video scripts,
Mhm.
I think there's an assumption that we all thought about this, that we're writing these scripts for the spoken word, not to be reading it, right? And so with that in mind, when you're writing a video script, David, before you send it on to your client or whatever, do you read it out loud and make sure it sounds right, like it sounds like conversational humans talking?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do actually is one of the best things you can do is to read your copy out loud. Another thing that's almost even better is to read it out loud to someone. And
Ah.
then what's even better is to have someone read it out loud to you so you can listen
Oh.
to how your copy sounds.
Oh, you might hear it differently that way.
Right. Right. And then
Ah,
you'll
when
hear,
someone else is okay.
you know,
And
they'll
then
you
go ahead, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, a lot of times you'll write a sentence and you think, well, that sentence is perfectly readable and understandable, but they'll stumble over the words or they'll read it with the
Oh.
wrong inflection. And you'll realize, oh, that's not, you know,
Okay.
I need to
That's
fix
really
that.
good insight. The other thing too, which I love, and especially in our virtual hybrid, blah, 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 crazy world that we're in now,
Mhm.
is using the Big View app. You can write it in the script writer and
Right.
then record yourself doing it, watch it back, send it to a colleague or a friend or a teammate and say, what do you think? Do you think this works?
Yep.
Before you actually put it out into the world,
That's
which
just,
that's a,
it's priceless to be
yeah.
able to do. I mean, when I started doing this stuff, we didn't have the ability to record ourselves so easily. We didn't have the ability certainly we didn't have the big view kind of things. And now, you had to read it out loud. You had to go find someone to do it, right? Now it's so easy to get AI to read it back to you, for you, to record it and play it back, to even have it as a video. It's just priceless. And it's a little painful to do that, right? There's a little bit of pain involved there because it's never as good as you think it's going to be. It's never the way you want it to be. And of course, hearing your own voice, it's like, I don't sound like that. But I mean, I'm sure you've done that time and time again, right? You've sat through watching yourself on television, painful as that may have been, and you kept learning from that,
Yes,
right? How to
yes,
be better and better
absolutely.
at doing that. Yeah.
Okay, well, as our time comes to a close, we want to deliver on our promise from the beginning of the hour, and that is to announce the giveaways for everyone who has stuck with us to the end. David, can you please tell everyone about the free giveaway that you are offering our viewers today?
Sure. If you go to my website, which is speakingofwriting.com, you can get a report that is 20, what is it? Copywriting from A to Z, 26 ways to improve response. And what that is going through every letter of the alphabet, right? Copywriting from A to Z. And each one of them is something that you can use to increase response. So it's kind of a fun way to learn about how to increase the conversion response of your copy.
I love that. And surely with 26 tips, my goodness, we went over a lot of different ones today, but I'm sure that there are plenty of others that people will be able to look at as well.
Yep, for sure.
All right. And then my giveaway, and I can't wait to download yours, David. My giveaway is, because we are all television broadcasters now, whether we want to be or not, I have created a guide on how to set yourself up for a terrific virtual meeting, presentation, interview, or video. And it's 4 steps. Go and there it is. Thank you so much, Bruno, for popping it in there. If you go to my website, you'll be able to look at the guide and then download it. And it's the 4 steps that you need to create so you come across looking really professional on camera. And also, you can see in the chat there the link to David's website so that you can get Copywriting from A to Z, 26 ways to increase response. And then Big View has a great giveaway as well. $20 off right now if you click on that link and sign up For the paid version, you'll get 20 bucks off. And let me tell you, it's just incredible. All of the features you get in the paid version, I would encourage you to look into it. And with that, we have come to almost the end of our hour. David, any parting words on what would be your very top advice for all of us who are trying to write better video scripts?
I think there's a couple of things. One is write a lot, right? Like the more you write, the better you'll get at it. It's like in fitness, do the reps. The other is to really study good writing, to really study good scripts, right? You see some scripts that you like, whoever they're from, really analyze it. What are they doing, right? How do they do this? Where do they have proof? Where do they have benefit? Do they use bigger sentences than me, smaller sentences? Do they use multisyllable words and I use, small words? Or do they use small words and I use big words, right? Compare it. Put your copy side by side. Put your script side by side. What are they doing differently? What can you learn from what they're doing?
All right. I love all that. And to be a good at anything, you have to study the best, right? That's just a part of learning and growing, is to find someone that you love to watch and listen to their copy points, dissect it, right? Peel the onion, see what they're doing that works, right?
Yeah, I bet you studied, broadcasters, Larry King. I mean, I love to study Larry King and learn how does he interview people? How does he make them? Yeah, so interesting.
Exactly. So we need to spend some time at it and continue to learn and grow with it. And as a couple of other takeaways that I learned from you, David, today, which are wonderful, be curious and create curiosity with your script writing. Also, don't lecture. Instead, tell a story. That will help you to not sound preachy. And then AI is an assistant, not a replacement, right? You can use it to maybe help prompt some ideas, but don't rely completely on it. It can be your assistant. All right. Well, David Deutsch, thank you so much. I've learned a great deal. I can't wait to download your 26 tips so I can improve my writing. And I encourage all of you today to do the same. It was lovely meeting and talking with you. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Big View webinar. Have a good day, everybody. Bye, David.
Right. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this too.
Now more than ever before, the way you communicate can make or break your career. Hi, I'm Sharon Delaney McLeod. I'm a television journalist turned speaker and facilitator, working with leaders and their teams to amplify their impact. In our hybrid world, it's crucial to connect with each other in meaningful ways. In fact, new research shows that effective communication has become the most vital competency and non-negotiable skill that modern leaders must flex to keep their teams engaged and productivity high. I invite you to follow my content for professional development best practices, podcasts, articles, and videos that will help you drive business results. I look forward to partnering with you in person or virtually to level up what I call your power skills. Hit the link below to start a conversation.
Teleprompter, create videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.